to the channel. If you're new to it, thumbs up and subscribe. If you don't, something bad will happen to you. Only joking. No, all about blues harmonica, and what you heard me play there was the walk down from a 70s and I think early 80s TV chat show called Parkinson in my country. It was a great show. People of all ages watched it. It was an adult show, interviewing guys from all over the world, interesting people of all sorts. And years later I got to know, in my profession, I got to know some guys that had the chair on that particular band. He was a big advocate of keeping the big bands alive, and those boys could read, or people in that band should I say, could read fly sheet at about 10 metres. They were that good. And that's improvising aside, but great big band. Okay, so today I'd like to talk to you about longevity. Now, not longevity as in the harmonicas, but in terms of playing endurance. And as you develop, you know, you'll probably work up your I don't like the word practice time. It's not a good psychological thing, but we have to use it for purposes because I've got people to relate to. But starting out or whatever, you'll develop and you'll play for periods of time and get better at it. But it's different when you're playing on your own for long periods of time. If you're playing a few riffs in a band, fair enough. That as you develop, you might have to be taken on 6, 7, 8 choruses if you're being featured. And of course, if you play on the street corner, you might be playing for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. If you're on your own, in order to you know, be cost effective to what you're trying to do. So what I'm pointing out here is these muscles have to be developed, and I have strategies to be able to do that without having to do 3 or 4 hours at a time when you're actually practicing. Yeah. So these are things because you do need to have this kind of endurance. Otherwise, you know, things can actually grind to a halt when you if you've ever experienced that. Short story I can tell you. Years ago, I was working in a saxophone workshop as a saxophonist, and guys came from all over the world. Brass players as well. Anyway, one Christmas I picked up a trumpet, and within 5 or 10 minutes I'd nailed down a few scales and chords, and I'd never played a trumpet before in my life. Then I was aiming to fire a standard down it and play a standard, see if I could work my way around that in a particular key. And a great trumpet player at the time just happened to be in there, and he kept saying to me, "You'll be sorry," and I was the source of his amusement, which I couldn't really work out. I should have known better, but of course he was right. I learnt that the next day because I couldn't play at all. I couldn't play any instruments. I couldn't play saxophones or any reed instrument. I couldn't play harmonicas, and I had to cancel all my Christmas gigs and my New Year's Eve gigs at that time because all the muscle was shot to pieces. The guys in brass, the trumpet, flugelhorn, trombone player, they have a real challenge going on to keep these things in. In fact, a friend of mine, great player, used to carry a mould of his own mouthpiece around his neck so he could keep the thing in every day when he didn't have an instrument with him. We don't have that in the woodwind world and this world, but what I'm trying to point out is you need to build these muscles if you want to work for any period of time, and I have strategies for that. Sometimes when you think you've only been practicing for an hour, you're stopping, starting, and it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same thing. So that's something to bear in mind when you're developing. Is this endurance that I think is required, and of course. There's other little strategies like moving on to higher harps where you need less air, or relaxing and playing slower, or playing on lower harps for other things. And then one of the tips I can give you is try and keep as dry as possible when you're playing. Yeah, obviously you need to keep the throat moist in one sense, but here you need to keep things really dry. You don't want the harp jamming up at all in any shape or form. And any form of lubrication is going to cause problems not only to the instrument but to your lips and all the rest of it. I've got boxing scars, fighting scars all over. Or I'd like to think that some of them were from that, but they're more from cut reeds and from lip problems on various instruments over the years. Alright, so thumbs up and subscribe. Great piece of kit to take up if you're new to it. I've got Skype face-to-face, mainly Skype at the moment because of the conditions that we're in, but things are getting better, so I should be back to face-to-face with the guys who are in my part of the world. Alright, I'll catch you on the rebound.